Good morning, it's Hannah here with Rundle's Urban Farm, and today I'm going to take you on our week 10 garden tour. We've got a lot of things getting ready to produce. We've got lots of green tomatoes on the vines and lots of baby winter squash and lots of flowers blooming. So the garden is just in full splendor right now. I'm going to show you some pruning that I did on the tomatoes. I'm hoping that it'll help them set more fruit because they've been a little slow with the heat that we've been getting to blossom, and they've been dropping a lot of their blossoms. So I'm hoping that taking some of the foliage off and letting them put more energy into producing fruit will help. And it also helps prevent disease by increasing the airflow. So hope you enjoy our week 10 garden tour. Alright, so here on this first trellis we have our winter squash, and this is a kabocha squash, one of our favorite winter squash varieties. They are very prolific, and they also have a shorter days to maturity than most winter squash. I think it's like 70 to 80 something in there, and most winter squash are 90 to 120 or something like that. And the flavor of these is just amazing. And then over here we've got our winter squash varieties that we're trialing. There's this little guy here, which is a green gold, as is this one. And then on the fence over there, that one hanging down is a banquet. And the Oregon on the end is not yet producing. And then we've got hanging right there a spaghetti squash. Oh, and back here we've got a little Hubbard squash, which is growing very rapidly. All right, and then we've got our tomatoes on the string trellis here. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but at the bottom of the tomatoes, all down the row, I pruned off a lot of the foliage so that we could get a little more airflow going through and prevent disease. So a lot of times, if there's not enough airflow and if the leaves get wet, the tomatoes will get either early blight, or if it's late in the season, it's late blight. And that can wipe out your tomato plants. It's usually pretty easy to control, at least for me, where it's not very humid, by just pulling off any branches that are infested. Like, for instance, this branch here starting to get some spots on it, so I could just pull that branch off and it won't spread to the rest of the plant, because it spread through the leaves and not through the system of the plant. You can see we've got lots and lots of baby tomatoes. These are wild boar indigo apple, and they're just really cool colors. Lots of tomato blossoms. So hopefully we'll be getting lots more tomatoes set soon. That was also what I was hoping would happen with the pruning, that they would be able to put more energy into setting fruit. I pruned these here. I think I pruned these guys even a little more heavily because they're so clumped together on this trellis. And here we've got some paste tomatoes on the trellis. They're a funny shape compared to your regular tomatoes. Oh, and here on the back fence, we've got another kabocha. All right, and then here we've got our King of the North peppers, which should have been producing by now. I think they're 55 to 65 days, and we're at about 70. So these guys are a little slower than expected. A nice crop of basil, some purple jalapenos. These are orange spice jalapenos, which are currently green, but I think they will ripen to orange. And then we've got some more peppers. And these are the ones that I don't know what they are. Hopefully they're not like super hot peppers, because, well, I never really plant any super hot peppers. But that would be a surprise. Zucchini. And we've been harvesting lots of zucchini already. I'm gonna make some zucchini bread later. Maybe on Monday, I guess. And here we've got our mystery squash, which still has not revealed its identity. It's got some blooms, but no fruit yet. And then we've got our cantaloupe, which seem to be doing pretty well, and they're actually going up the trellis of their own accord. And then we've got our volunteer tomato, which also remains a mystery as to what kind of tomato that is. We've got our beans, which are blossoming very heavily now. Well, not very heavily, but blossoming quite a bit. And those should be... Now this is a bush bean. It's totally starting to climb. I don't know what's going on there. And here we've got our watermelon and a delicata squash, which is very quickly taking over this little corner, and the onions. And unfortunately, my onions look very sad because the cats like to come in here and lay on them because they know that I will chase them off if they lay on my onions. And lots of cosmos. And the sunflowers are in full bloom right now. Super, super lovely. All right, and we've got nasturtiums and marigolds and more beans. And here is what these bush beans look like. They're called dragon tongue bush beans. I'm assuming this is about the size you're supposed to get, but there's not really much point in me harvesting this one because it's the only one that's at an edible size right now. So I might just let this one mature all the way and harvest seeds from that one. Some cosmos. Love and a mist. These are Amish paste tomatoes, which are pretty big for your typical paste tomatoes. Lettuce, basil, and I'm waiting to see. I planted some more basil seeds for purple basil in here. Hopefully those come up soon. Peppers. Now this guy is a poblano pepper. And that's another poblano. And those, I believe, are banana peppers. I'm not sure about the one in the middle. Then we've got carrots and our eggplant, which this is the same blossom that we saw in a few of the other videos. More carrots, peppers. This is the candy cane red pepper. There we go. It's not anywhere close to red yet, so we'll wait a while to harvest that. This is cilantro, and it went to seed, and I thought about cutting the flower heads off, but you can see here on this, it's actually got seeds now, and I can harvest those. I gotta do some research on when to harvest them. but I can harvest them, and that is coriander. Or I can save it to plant more cilantro next year. And then we've got another pepper here and some peppers back there, all doing well. And carrots. Of the 3 different carrot varieties I planted, I think only one really came up, and that was the Long Rouge Sang tomato. Or carrot. I'm just calling everything tomatoes. Okay, and then here we've got our winter squash again, and you can see how nicely they are climbing the trellis. And our mystery squash back here is creating quite the jungle on the compost pile. It's just vining like crazy. And you can see here, this guy is enormous. It's got the end of a buttercup squash, but the coloring of the giant white pumpkins that we grew last year. So I think it's some sort of cross between those 2 plants. And we're really hoping that it tastes good because it's very, very prolific. There's probably 7 of these on here right now and more being added every day. So we'll see how those end up tasting. Here we've got our container squash. And this week we backed off on watering these guys. They were getting all wilted during the day in the heat, and then they would perk up in the evening. So we would water them when they wilted, but then we discovered that the water, the soil was staying very damp, and so they really weren't needing water even though they looked all wilted. And because of the lack of stress that they were experiencing because we were watering them so much, they were not producing any blossoms. And now we've gotten them to blossom by backing up on the water a little bit. And they are just going all over the place. They are climbing this trellis behind them. And the beans are finally doing something. They're actually climbing, which is good. And these beans over here are also getting ready to climb. And we've got a little blossom here on the Painted Lady runner beans. Up here in the front yard, the bagged tomatoes are starting to blossom, and they are looking very healthy. This spot right here in the front is one of my favorite. All the bright colored zinnias and calendula, zinnias, snapdragons, and some, here is our cucumber trellis. You can see I've already harvested some cucumbers, but there's one right there hanging out, and we should be getting lots more soon given all those blossoms. Side here, this is one of the front raised beds. We've got some blue tomatoes, and over here is another blue tomato variety. And the strawberries are here, and we've been cutting all of the suckers off, and ever since we started doing that, the ever-bearing strawberries started blooming again, so we should have lots more strawberries, which is super fun. Right here we've got winter squash and gladiolas and nasturtiums and onions at the front, and then we've got beets. Under here we've got beets. I intended to harvest these before the squash got super big, but the squash are super big and we don't really eat a lot of beets. I just use them for fermenting, so there's still a lot of beets in there. And back here, you can see we've got a nice little kabocha starting in here, and there's one around the side as well. Right there. Thank you for joining me today on our week 10 garden tour. I hope that you enjoyed seeing what we've got growing, and I will see you back next week. Bye.